for March 9th, 2026. Lisa, could we have the opening statement?
I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on December 16th, 2025, a copy of said notice was emailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger. Second, on December 16th, 2025, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 16th, 2025, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and for your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Could we have a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Barillo.
Here.
Mr. Cantor is excused. Mr. Hughes.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Orozco.
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
Present.
Ms. Scottson. Here. Mr. Kabarakis.
Here.
Chairman Mertens.
I am here.
You have a quorum.
This time I'd like everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a brief moment of silence for our troops overseas fighting for us. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Andy, could you swear in our professionals?
You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do.
Please state your names for the record.
Charles Cunliffe.
Christine Bell.
Professionals are sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, Lisa, any minutes tonight?
No minutes for approval.
Correspondence?
Yes. John Jackson asked that the application for case BA 2519 Stewart Street LLC be carried to the board's March 23rd, 2026 meeting with no further notice.
Okay, anybody in the audience for case number BA 2519, this will be carried to March 23rd, 2026, with no further notice, and expiration is still good at April 29th, 2026. Okay, anything else?
That would be it.
Okay. Doesn't look like we have any resolutions tonight.
No.
Okay. Okay, at this time, before we start the first application, I just would like to ask anybody in the audience that is here tonight who's objecting to any of the applications, could you just raise your hand so I know if there's anybody from public that needs to speak tonight? Okay. Okay, Charlie, what do you think?
So I guess for members of the public, is anyone, how many people are here for L&L, just so we know? As a member of the public? And then how many folks are here for this other application, Wyckoff Mills? All right.
Okay.
I would recommend maybe we have L&L come first. It is a use variance, but it's minor site modifications that they're coming in for, a generator and a fuel storage tank. I think we might be able to get through that application relatively quickly.
Board members? Okay. So at this time, we'll, let me read the case C. Case number BA 18-06A, L&L Paving Company, Incorporated. Use variance and amended preliminary final site plan. Application of L&L Paving Company, Incorporated, as applicant in 1 Greenway LLC, 2 Greenway LLC as owners seeking use variance, an amended preliminary and final site plan approval to install a generator and a diesel tank on a concrete pads at the existing previously approved hot mix asphalt plant on the premise known as Block 177, Lot 62-01, 89 Yellowbrook Road. This application was originally scheduled for February 9th, 2026, when it was rescheduled for tonight with no further notice. expiration May 7th, 2026. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, good to see you again.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Been a
since I've
while,
seen you. Yeah.
but at least it's not a full crowd behind you.
I had to wear. I got rid of my flak jacket.
Okay.
So,
Good to see you again.
good to see you, and to the members who were here for the prior hearings on this application. My name is Michael Butler. I'm here on behalf of the applicant tonight, L&L Paving. Just for housekeeping, we did serve notice. I want to make sure that the board can accept jurisdiction and the notice was sent out correctly.
The board is jurisdiction. You can proceed, Mr. Butler.
Perfect, thank you. As the chairman has indicated, tonight's application is an amendment to the preliminary and final major site plan approval that was granted by this board back in 2019. What my client is doing is adding a concrete pad in the back of the property for an electrical generator so it can operate the plant and the site if there's an emergency. And also a bigger fuel tank on the property. There was already a fuel tank that was approved at the prior application. This is a bigger fuel tank that will allow them to more efficiently use the property. And we'll explain those a little bit more when I bring up the witnesses.
Okay.
There are some just minor variances that are associated with this application. Most of them are buffer variances, but we'll go through those variances as we go through the application.
Okay. Okay, you have any professional witnesses
Yes,
you'd like?
yeah.
We'll get them all sworn in, and then
Perfect.
they can do their...
Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, state your names for the record. Spell your last.
Frank McIntyre, McIntyre, General Manager of Greenland.
Andrew Comey, COMI, civil engineer.
Christine Cafone, professional planner.
Witnesses are sworn.
Okay, thank you. So take it your engineer will be first up.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Come on up. And while Angie is setting up, just a little background for those who weren't involved in the last set of approvals. The applicant first came in front of the planning board back in 2016, and we got an approval at that point to use this property for a construction yard and an office. A few years later, we came before the zoning board again. This was in 2018, and we started a long history of hearings for a use variance application to allow the property to be used as a hot asphalt or bituminous concrete site. This is an amended application because there was a long and torturous history of this approval in court. We went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and this board's approval was affirmed. So the site is still being actively constructed underneath that old approval, and you'll hear some more about that tonight because there were some questions about some conditions of approval that have not yet been met yet just because they're still actively constructed. Okay, perfect.
So I just need your qualifications.
So if you could, I know that you were sworn in before, if you state your name again for the record and provide the board with your qualifications.
Certainly. My name is Andrew R. Comey, COMI. I'm with Kennedy Consulting Engineers, located at 211 Maple Avenue, Red Bank. I'm a graduate of Rutgers University in the field of civil engineering, and I have 25 years' experience in land development engineering
And
projects.
license currently valid.
It is.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. We accept your qualifications.
Perfect. All right. Can you put up, I think we marked it as A9, correct?
Aerial exhibit?
Yep.
Do you want, here's the exhibit list? if you
Yeah,
want.
I think
Oh,
it's-
you have it, okay.
I'll check it just to make sure it's in.
And I do have small size versions of that exhibit.
People usually just use that. You're okay.
Yeah.
I know I need to
Phone was so big.
Your phone was this big, it'd be a laptop.
And Mike, just for the board's clarity, so, right, they technically need a use variance because the original approval had a use variance, so anything that they add to the site triggers, a new use variance approval. But as far as any of the conditions and stipulations in the prior use variance approval, none of that's really changing, right? We're just talking about the generator and the fuel station.
Correct, you're exactly correct. So, because it was a use variance, we have to come back. I know that we were talking to the town about, hey, we're just putting a concrete pad out there, why do we need to come back? But, so we, understand we have to come back because it was a use variance. So technically, this is an expansion of the use variance. But the site is operating exactly how the prior testimony was put in. There's no changes to any of the prior testimony, and we'll go through that with Frank McIntyre when he comes up to testify. So, go ahead, if you can talk the board through your Exhibit A9.
Correct. Exhibit A9 is an aerial exhibit. It's essentially one of the same overall site plans that was submitted, but with an aerial image added to the background. The site shows the property, which is highlighted in red. It's approximately 35 acres, lot 62.01 of block 177, and lies in the SED 1 zone. Just for orientation, quickly to the east, or to the right-hand side of the exhibit is Yellow Brook Road. A New Jersey Transit rail line is to the south. Commercial development lies to the west. And a single-family property, which is also owned by the applicant, which is 69 Yellow Brook Road, lies directly to the north, or to the tip of the triangle. So as Mike mentioned, the current property was substantially constructed in accordance with the prior 2019 approval, with some minor exceptions that we'll discuss. But in general, that construction associated with the prior approval included the current production facility, associated buildings, driveways, fencing, lighting, landscaping, parking, and signage.
Perfect. All right. If you want, we can flip to exhibit. It was marked as A10.
Correct.
Is that the site plan?
Yes, this is the colorized site plan.
Again, it's the same site plan that was submitted, just a colorized version. So I can go through,
Yeah,
through the proposed.
Go ahead.
I don't want to step on your toes.
No, you're fine.
So referring to Exhibit A10, which is just, again, it's just a colorized version of the submitted site plan. It shows the two major improvements that we'd like to discuss. The first is the proposed generator, which will be located near the southerly property line, adjacent to that New Jersey Transit rail line. The generator will sit on a 13 by 26 foot concrete pad. The pad will be located 50 feet from the southerly property line. There is, you'll see a black line that surrounds two sides of that concrete pad. That's a block retaining wall is proposed at the rear of the generator. The maximum height of that wall would be approximately 5 feet. It will be constructed of concrete block and would be placed into the side of an existing slope. And the wall's purpose is really just to help minimize the disturbance because of that berm that is there that separates the property to the New Jersey Transit rail line to the south.
And
yeah.
just to jump in, so and that wall is less than 50 feet from the property line, slightly less.
It is, yes.
And for between it and the property line, like you said, there's a berm, so it slopes down, and then there's woods.
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And as noted in the board planner's review, the generator, since you mentioned, are within that side buffer area, a variance is required. The generator will only be used in emergency situations and would also be exercised approximately once a week. The next,
And just to give the board clarity, the property immediately to the south of the railroad line is anchor block, so it's another industrial use, so it's not like there's a residential property right on the other side of there. So just want to give that clarity.
And just a little more clarity. To the north of the anchor block is the Girl Scout property, correct?
Correct.
And that's also a wooded property.
Right, it shows on the, again, on A9 as a wooded area, correct. Yep.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. The next proposed improvement is the fuel tank, which is shown on the left-hand side of Exhibit A10. That's a 20,000-gallon above-ground fuel tank, which would be located in the northerly portion of the property within a paved equipment storage area. The tank will rest on an 18-foot wide by 43-foot long concrete pad surrounded by bollards for protection. Since the fuel tank is located within that equipment storage area, it will have no impact to site circulation, no impact to parking. There are, as noted, 3 equipment storage spaces that would be eliminated. But again, those were never included in the parking calculation.
And we'll talk about, just for the board, we'll talk about how the fuel tank is going to be used with Frank McIntyre.
And then just for the board's clarity too, so as part of their site plan approval, they did install a very extensive buffer along Yellowbrook Road. I want to say it's on the order of 3 to 6 foot high, and then plantings on top of that. They had to do drip irrigation to make sure that those buffers, so, from Yellowbrook Road, this is going to be largely not visible, as much of the site is in the existing condition, so.
Thank you. Okay. Next, if we could flip back to A9, the aerial exhibit.
And that's actually good that we're here while you're flipping. The fuel tank, it is indicated on A9 in the yellow, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, the northerly of the 2 yellow circles.
Okay. And then if you could scroll down, the generator is, I can't see, it's behind Mr.
That's
O'Donnell's
it.
head.
It is.
But it's towards the back of the property in that yellow area, correct?
Correct.
Is that natural gas, the generator?
We'll get an answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
The next is, I just wanted to touch upon, is there is a concrete structure that was previously installed. It's shown on this exhibit. There are 2 dimensions from that structure, but it's not called out with a yellow circle. It's to the north, on the northwest property line. This structure was constructed to house the electrical gear for the truck scale, and surrounding that structure is similar to what's proposed behind the generator, is another block retaining wall that's about 6 feet high at its maximum point. Similarly, that block wall was constructed into an existing landscape berm, and again, its purpose was to minimize disturbance to that existing berm. The structure is 35.4 feet to the northerly property line, and it's required to be 50 feet to the property line, and therefore a variance is required.
Perfect. And I know we're going to talk quickly about some, maybe the board engineer's review letter. The proposed changes to the site, do they have any impact on stormwater management?
No.
Or I know you talked before, but just to confirm the circulation around the site.
No impact to site circulation. There is a very minor increase in lot coverage and impervious coverage due to primarily to that concrete pad for the generator. The fuel pad is located over an existing paved asphalt parking area as well already, so there's no increase for that structure.
Perfect. And then there was another variance that we were talking to the planner's office about. I just want to bring this to the board's attention because it's a little, it's not, I'm not going to say it's odd, but it's a technical variance. Can you scroll up just a little bit? Technically there's a buffer variance because a very small portion of, I'm going to call it the left-hand side, but it's the northwest corner of the property. On the other side of the tracks is, the railroad tracks is a it's the ARE2 zone.
Correct.
And there's an interpretation that there could potentially be a variance because it's an industrial property that borders a residential property.
Yes.
Okay. And once again, that area is fully wooded. To the north is an industrial site. Then there's the railroad track, and then there's the Girl Scouts.
That's right, yes.
Okay, perfect.
So I've reviewed the board engineer's letter. We can certainly agree to comply with any of the conditions. The only thing I wanted to touch on, just a couple of quick things. Per the prior approval, there was some fencing that wasn't constructed, 124 linear feet of 10-foot-high privacy fence along the northerly entrance driveway, and the applicant agrees to install that prior to any certificate of occupancy. And then 69 Yellow Brook Road, which I mentioned, that's the single-family residential property to the north. It was agreed that prior to a certificate of occupancy, that residential house would be demolished, and therefore that would eliminate any variance of this property adjacent to a residential property.
Correct. And we're covering all of our bases,
Okay.
which is why we're talking about it. The original approval did have a condition of approval that the applicant would take that residence out of existence, and they still plan on doing that. It was tied to the CO for the property, and that's still going to be a condition of approval, and that's still going to occur.
So can you just clarify that for the board? So the applicant doesn't have a CO to operate from the site as it is?
They have TCOs that have been issued, not a full final CO.
Do you know what the conditions are holding up the full final CO?
There was some remediation that had to be done on the property from the prior owner.
Okay.
That's still in process. I think it's potentially done. The goal is to get the property under a full CO by the end of the year.
Okay, all right. I don't take any exception. And I just want to note for the board's record, so the structure on the north side of the scale house, that's accessory to the scale house. It's the hydraulics for the actual scale itself. You know, it was just probably an afterthought. They have gotten a TCO operating from the site, so the township has acknowledged that it's been there. I don't take any exception to it. We just wanted to make sure that it got on the record, just so it's protected as part of any, board approval tonight. And then, Mike, I'll just jump in and.
No, go for it,
yeah.
go ahead.
So, as part of the prior approval, the applicant made their pro-rata share for future signalization at Yellowbrook and Route 33?
We actually couldn't make that determination whether it was paid or not. But if it hasn't been paid, it will be paid.
Prior to the CO?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
All right, and then, generator, obviously we'll talk about the use, but it's gonna comply with all the township's noise ordinance requirements in that regard?
Correct.
Okay. And, the fuel storage tank, so right now it kinda just shows the tank and a concrete pad. Resolution compliance, you'll show bollards and everything for, I'm assuming that's like
Yeah.
covered by state statute for protection of the tank, so it's not blown up. And then it's for the applicant's own personal use, there's no third party coming in here to fuel, right?
Correct, and we'll go over that testimony with Frank McIntyre. But yes, the fuel tank is solely used by L&L Paving for its own equipment.
Okay, and then I think we should just talk about it. The sidewalk ordinance might have changed a little bit since their last time here. I don't know that we specifically granted a sidewalk waiver the first time around. I don't take any exception to it. I just wanted to note it for the record if the board should just come because it is an amendment to the site plan approval. As part of their site plan, the road they have curb cuts and the road grades onto their property to some extent. So installing sidewalk along the frontage would certainly be counterintuitive to the drainage schematic for Yellowbrook Road there. So I don't take an issue to it, and I just wanted to put it on the record for the board.
Is that acceptable?
That is acceptable, yes.
Okay, I concur. You don't need it there. Okay. Anything else, Charlie?
I think we can hear operational unless Mike has anything
No, that's good.
Any board members with any questions for the engineer?
Just one question. The aerial view shows that there are 3 entrances onto the property. Is that going to remain as 3, or is that being modified?
Yeah, the one for the.
Yeah, that's going to remain. So there are 2 entrances into what I'm going to call the plant area for trucks to circulate the property, and then there's one entrance that goes to the office. So you can't drive from the office to the plant area.
Correct. Okay. So the fencing that you mentioned earlier, that's going to continue along that line of Yellowbrook Road?
No, it's along the northerly entrance drive, just on, it's 100-foot, 124-foot long. It just essentially goes from Yellowbrook Road into the site on that northernmost driveway, on the southerly side of the drive.
Yeah, and to give the board some context on that, so I think in the course of the hearings, there was discussion about the residential buffer to the property to the north, and then through the whole multi-year process, I think the applicant bought that property, and there was a agreement to convert that use from a residential to office in the future. So at some point, they agreed to the fence, and then I think also the fact that the driveway, you can't physically put a buffer across the driveway, that also provided some screening if you're driving south on Yellowbrook Road, you know, to maybe not see directly into the site too much.
And the third reason for that, actually, yeah, that's perfect. If you can you turn it a little, so perfect. So actually, right there between the grass and the pavement is where that fence is going to be. And the third reason for the fence being in existence is for nighttime operations. So if you, for those who are here, if you remember, for the new board members, the site does operate at night, but it doesn't produce any asphalt. It's allowed to distribute it. So trucks can come into the site, and in order to meet noise regulations, the circulation changes, and trucks come in and out of this northern driveway more often. And the wall is to buffer the sound while trucks are on the scale.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a couple of quick questions. Good, Nick.
You said that there was going to be a larger tank. So is it going to be 2 tanks? We're keeping the smaller tank? We're getting rid of the smaller tank? Is it going to be 1 tank?
One tank. The smaller tank will be removed, and the larger tank will be on site.
1 tank. And getting back to how's the generator being powered?
I'll get you an answer when I get Frank McIntyre up here.
Okay. And you mentioned something about remediation. And what is that concerning? What is that concerning?
So the prior owner was obligated to do some site remediation from a prior use, and that was part of, I think they're either done or very close to being done. They had some.
Well, what is it that's being done? What's being remediated?
The soil, and Frank McIntyre can provide some more details. So there was where, and I don't want to provide testimony, but one of the site, there was an old concrete manufacturing facility on this property, and part of the site had some oil that was remediated.
Gotcha.
And just additional context to that, so the site had a history going back to like the 80s of being a concrete precast plant, and I think the applicant provided extensive testimony. They removed like up to a foot of like broken concrete throughout the site, and part of their redevelopment of the project. And then, Mike, is there an LSRP for the site remediation?
Yes.
Yeah, so anything, they can't close that out until their LSRP signs off to it, so it's not like they're just willy-nilly in things.
Right,
Okay.
and the
Thank you.
area that is being remediated is an area that's intended to be seeded and grassed. There's actually no buildings going there. Yeah, if you're looking at there's a white rectangle on the southeastern side near the railroad. That's the cold storage building. In front of that is the area that's being remediated. When I say in front of that, it's the kind of the grassy area in between that building and the office. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Comey, the distance from the tank to the generator, what roughly, what's the distance there? Roughly, ballpark, the way the crow flies.
From the tank to the generator,
Yeah.
700 feet.
Why is the tank so far away from the generator? I'm assuming, is there an actual connection, or is it?
No.
Is the
No connection.
So the fuel is going to be brought, so does the generator have a tank of its own, a smaller tank?
Again, you'll have to hear from the applicants.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give you some more,
Okay.
once I get Frank up here. We'll
All
give
right,
you
fair
some more
enough.
information on how it's going to work. But there is no intention so the generator does not power the pump. The generator is for the facility.
Right. But the fuel tank is for the generator?
No, the fuel tank is for the fueling of L&L's equipment.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
trucks and I call them diggers, they're not diggers, they're
Gotcha.
backhoes.
Okay, so the on-site equipment?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
you. All right, so here's the man with the answers.
Okay.
Could you just state your name again for the record?
Frank McIntyre.
Okay.
A lot of you may know me as Sandy. You can call me that too.
And you were previously sworn in, so
Yes.
you are still under oath. There were some questions about the electrical generator and how that's powered. Can you just talk to the
Diesel
board?
fuel.
Okay, can you just talk to the board
So
through
the
the generator?
If you would like, I know all the questions. If you want, I'll just go ahead and answer them.
Yeah, answer them first, and then.
Okay,
when we
so
get-
the generator
that'd be
is-
a good idea.
It's got a self-contained diesel tank that's beneath it. It's a 24-hour tank, they call it. And, we own the generator already. It sits on a trailer because when this came up, it was kind of an oversight that we didn't do this. So it sits on a trailer and it's wired to the thing manually, so we're trying to get it where it's supposed to be. And we do have a fuel truck on site, like a regular fuel truck that you would see going to someone's house, and that's how we fuel that. Some of the larger equipment also, that's how we fuel them as well. As far as the diesel tank, it is a 20,000 gallon, what they call a split tank, is 12,000 gallons of on-road fuel, like for trucks, and 8,000 gallons of off-road fuel for like machinery and, equipment of such like that, the generator. It is identical to the tank that the town has.
That's all diesel, right? On-road,
It's all
off-road
diesel
diesel?
fuel, no
Okay.
gasoline. It's a self-contained, dual-wall, fire-guarded tank. It's impact resistant. It's supposed to be able to take a hit from a large truck and not be penetrated. It's supposed to be able to have a burn rating of 4 hours at 2,000 degrees before the fuel would reach a temperature that would cause it to become dangerous. There are ballards every 4 feet all the way around it on its own self-contained. It comes what they call plug-and-play. It comes on a truck. We pour the pad, you drop it down, plug it in, and that's the end of it. It's a self-contained unit. I think that was all the questions you asked. If there's anything else.
Did we miss anything?
Just a little clarification. So there's going to be a 20,000 gallon diesel tank with 2 different types of diesel in there, on-road, off-road. Then you have a diesel truck, a tanker on site?
So what we do, because a tank like that, I wouldn't want to take any tracked machines and drive across the property on the paved surfaces and what have you. So we have a small oil truck that we purchased from actually the guy who delivers our fuel was an older truck. We cleaned it all up, painted it nice, has our colors and names on it, looks nice. And what we do is they keep that full too. So if we're using a big excavator or a bulldozer or something in the recycle yard, that's how we would fuel that.
So you'll use the 20,000 gallon tank to fill up that fuel truck?
We can, yes.
Okay.
We can. The reason being is, so we have a 2,000 gallon on-road right now and a 1,000 gallon off-road. We have fuel delivered every day. You're paying for that delivery. This is a more efficient way to do it. We can get 1 delivery of each a week.
Okay.
So it's kind of crazy when you see the numbers. I was a little flabbergasted myself. We'll pay for this thing in 2 years.
So as the fuel tank in the generator is depleted, how will you fill that tank back up?
With the truck.
With the truck?
Yeah.
From the tank? From the 20,000 gallon tank?
We could, yeah, it
Okay.
depends, or if the fuel guys are. We will probably do that now, because what they do is now the fuel truck comes, he fills that tank, fills that, he fills the truck. It'll be a little more,
Right.
efficient, we can fill it off the big tank, it's,
Flexible.
yeah. And the way we're setting it up is, as Mike spoke about the flow of the traffic, it's gonna be on the far side of that parking lot, and we're designing it so the trucks, at the end of the day, can come in that driveway, the 2 of them, and we're making it one way on either side of it. Trucks can pull up if they have a trailer with a machine. So we're going to have a double pump on this end and a double pump on this end. This end's the on-road, they can fuel the truck. This end's the off-road, they can fuel the machine. They go and park end of the day.
They don't idle when they're fueling.
No, actually, the system's actually really good because, as we've been growing and everything like that, so we have separate different companies. We have ARE, we have L&L, we have Greenway, and we have 1 fuel tank. So this way, it has a computer in it, and each truck will have a card in it attached to the key. So you have to shut the truck off to get the card to get the fuel. And then they'll also document what truck, what driver, how many hours, the mileage, whatever it is, whether it's machine hours, whether it's a truck mileage, and you'll be able to document, and it'll separate the company. So it's going to be way more efficient.
Okay.
And Frank, just to clarify, so the fuel tank, that's will draw electric from that central garage shop building?
That's
on site?
correct. I believe in the plan, it shows a line going right down to the building. It's nothing crazy, it's not a lot of electric.
And then the generator itself, does that provide emergency for everything on site, just the asphalt plant?
No, it's just for the plant.
Okay,
And the reason this all came about, when we built the plant, originally they wanted a large CT cabinet. It was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I kind of lost my mind. We bought a switchgear for it. And so that's, what'll happen is it'll sit on the ground, and it's where the power comes to the plant. If the power cancels, the switch changes it, starts the generator, and fires the plant.
gotcha.
Reason being is you can't, if the plant were to go down in the middle of production, storm, whatever the case may be, and any of you who live out that way know the power goes out at the drop of a hat. Now you have the plant all full of hot asphalt. You got to get it out. It's a catastrophe when it gets hard in there. We've had it.
So, and then when you say the fuel tank also services equipment on site, so there's equipment associated with the asphalt plant, loading all the aggregates into the actual plant, but then you also have a Class B recycling license on the site as
Correct.
well, right?
Correct.
And that license for the Class B is valid with the state and everything like that?
Yep, we update that every year.
All right, that's all I have.
That basically allows you to take in millings to use for wrap for.
Correct. We
the-
take in
the production.
millings, chunk asphalt, we take in concrete and block, and we crush it up. The concrete obviously is used for road base and what have you, but all the asphalt is used to go back in the plant. Those of you who were here for the original thing, our plant is what they call a high wrap plant. It can use up to 65% recycled material. It's a super, environmentally friendly plant, and we run like 50-55% most of the time. I know there was a lot of testimony when it was all happening, saying we're going to have mountains of asphalt all over the place. We run out of it constantly because we use so much of it. So it's a good thing. It's a real good thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sandy, on both of them, with the generator and the diesel tank, is there any special fire equipment for both of them? And if you do, could you explain how it works if, in the event there was a fire in either one?
So I'm not mistaken with the fire ordinance, like our present tank, you have to have fire extinguishers right there. We have two hanging on our
Just
tank
fire
there.
extinguishers? I mean,
There's
that's
fire
pretty...
extinguishers. I mean, it is diesel fuel. It's hard to ignite diesel fuel. I mean, any fire class you see, they show you, they put a match out in it. But again, these tanks, this tank that we're purchasing is designed safety oriented. Like I said, it's dual wall, it's designed to take a fire for up to 4 hours, impact resistant. It's, they are very safety oriented. They had an incident years and years ago with one of their buildings, so they're a little afraid of fire.
And the generator?
The generator, like I said, it has a tank underneath it, but it has all sorts of emergency stops and what have you on it. It's very, self-contained. There's really not much to it.
Okay.
It's designed to shut off if anything goes wrong. It almost a little too much. We've had issues with it being brand new and it shut off in the middle of running one day. But like anything new nowadays, computers and what have you make you nuts.
All right, I was just curious.
Sure.
And
Okay,
that generator, when it goes in, it's inspected by JCP&L?
Well, when we install it, it will be installed by our electricians. It'll be inspected by the town's electrical inspector, and then JCP&L will look at it as well, and then they put the power back in, because we have to disconnect the power to the plant to hook it up, because the back of the cabinet that we have to hook into is live at the moment. So you can't be in there playing with it when it's alive.
Did the fire bureau give you a letter, so the town's okay with
I
everything?
believe it's gone to all these
You would have, yeah,
agencies,
that would be contingent on the,
Yep.
okay.
Just real quick, Mr. McIntyre, the generator you said has a 24-hour tank,
They call it a 24-hour tank.
and that's subterranean beneath it?
It's underneath the unit. It's not in the ground. It's a self-contained unit.
And how many gallons is that tank?
I'd be lying if I said I didn't know. They call it a 24-hour tank. If I told you it's the size of the generator,
13 by 26?
well, that's
is
the pad. It's smaller than
Right.
that. I would say the generator is about 6.5 feet wide and probably about 13 or 14 feet long. And then the tank is probably about, if I had to guess, 24 inches tall, maybe a little less, 20, 22.
Okay.
And it sits underneath and it draws the fuel out of the bottom.
So the burn through on that generator for 24 hours, I don't know how much it's going through, but are we looking at a couple hundred gallons underneath?
I would say it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 500 or 600 gallons at
Okay.
least. the engine inside of that thing is rather large. It's a big generator to run that plant. We have a
Would have
2,000
to be,
amp
yeah.
service into the plant, so I can tell you for a fact, the plant, when it's running, pulls about 445 amps, because I had to check that when we were sizing the generator. They told me to get a 500 amp. I got a 600 because I just want to be safe.
So since it's not underground, there's an exposure to the outside of that?
It's in what they call a sound attenuated unit. It's,
Okay.
when it's running, you can barely even hear it. You could stand next to it and we could hold this conversation.
Not so much the generator, the fuel tank.
The fuel tank is underneath it. It's part of the structure, the frame of it, as you
So it's
would.
part of the generator?
It's part of the
It's
generator.
not separate
It's
from the
all one unit. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
That's all
McIntyre.
within the metal of the.
It's all within the metal. It looks, if you looked at it, it's all white and the bottom is black, but that's the frame and the fuel tank.
Yeah, and just to add to that, right, so it's just if they lose power in the middle of normal operating hours that they were approved to as part of their prior approval, they could continue to manufacture asphalt and not have disruption. There were still conditions of the approval about like when the plant had to stop manufacturing, couldn't be making asphalt overnight. I think they're allowed to store it in the silos and for night paving operations and things like that, but it's not to circumvent so you can run 24/7 through the night. It's just when you lose power during the approved hours of operation, they're able to continue to operate the plant.
And also to expound on that is, the only reason it would run all the time if the power was out is there's the tanks that hold the AC, the asphaltic cement. They are heated by a separate unit that is powered through the plant, because it keeps that oil at 370 degrees all the time. And so that has to have power maintained to it as well.
And I think the condition was there was no production after 9 o'clock.
No, no.
That was a yes to that's the condition.
That's the condition. No, we don't. No, we don't.
We got you.
I gotcha.
Gotcha.
Just
You
to
got what I was
circle-
putting
yeah,
down.
Just to circle back to the concrete structure by the scale house and the retaining wall, just to confirm, what's in that concrete structure?
So what that is when it was necessary to get power out there for the scale house and also for all the lights, there's large power in the garage, so we had to run power out there, and then there was a transformer. And then, and then you have to put a panel in and all that. The electrician says to me, well, we'll put it outdoor stuff, and then you can, build a shed around it. I'm like, I'm going to put an electrical shed outside, like a wooden shed around it. Well, the old concrete plant had this concrete building. It was 6 foot by like 12 foot long. And it had electrical stuff in it. I go, hold on, I got perfect thing for that. And we just moved it up there and put everything right inside of that. It's protected from the environment, and it houses all that stuff. It's just a lot safer, neater, cleaner looking. It looks like it belongs instead of some little wooden shack.
Okay.
I don't have any further
Any
questions.
questions?
I don't know if anyone from the board does.
Okay, guess we're ready for Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you. You again.
Me again.
We'll start
I'm just
charging
going to
you
stay
breakfast.
here, I know. You'd be
Should've brought a
justified, I
pizza
was
for all
just
of us.
here. I should have
Yeah.
brought snacks.
All right.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Christine Cafone. I'm a licensed professional planner. I've testified here in Howell many times, as well as hundreds of other planning and zoning boards, and my licenses are current and valid.
You're good, thank you.
And I was the planner on the original application, and I
right.
have to say, I did take a tour of the plant the other day, so if you wanted to go out and see it, I think you'll be pleased with how it's operating.
The buffer is,
It's really
Can't even see the
operating
place.
nicely and clean and tight, and I think it's really one of the projects that I am proud of. It was a long time getting to that, so it was nice. It was freezing the day that we went out, but it was nice to take a tour of the site. So the reason we're here is because, as this board well knows, hot mix asphalt is not a permitted use in the SED zone, the SED1 zone. So because even this is really what I would consider a de minimis expansion of that approval, because the use was established by D1 variance, we have to come and seek a D variance for any modifications to it. So you heard the testimony from prior witnesses that in addition to the D1, we're also seeking some variance relief. So first, a minor intrusion into the buffer for both the generator as well as the retaining wall. and then for the buffer to that adjoining property on lot 60, or 69 Yellowbrook Road. So I would submit to the board that I will rely on the purposes that I relied on when I originally testified on this application for the grant of the variance, which is criteria G, which talks about sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses, and then also criteria M, which talks about an efficient use of land. You heard the testimony earlier from our engineer that this will be a very limited use application, and it will have no impact to either the parking or the circulation plan that's existing on the site today, which functions well, safely, and efficiently. I would submit to the board that there will be no substantial detriment to the impact on the zone plan. When you look at the stated purpose of the SED zone at section 188-79 in your zoning ordinance here, it reads as follows. The purpose of the SED zone is to provide for a variety of economic development opportunities in areas of the township where rail and highway infrastructure are readily available. So because we meet that stated purpose of the zone plan, I see no substantial detriment. The other thing, I think, if you had the pleasure of participating in the last application, you know that buffers were significant, and we spent a lot of time and care and consideration to go into not only the dimensions of the buffer, but what went in those buffers. And I can tell the board that it's my opinion, having been on site, recently, that I think the buffers are performing well and will allow us to continue to meet our burden of proof with respect to the negative criteria, having no substantial detriment to the zone plan of the public good. So I do think we meet our burden of proof for the entirety of the relief sought in conjunction with this application relative to the D as well as the C variances.
Good job. Christine?
I take no issue with the testimony. I think, the proposed improvements are minimal. I don't think it really impacts the prior approvals. So.
Any questions for the planner? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Christine. We'll see you soon.
Yes, you will.
Okay, at this time, we will now open to public.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hughes, Mr. Orozco with the second. All in favor? Okay, Lisa,
So the chairman has opened the hearing for the members of the public to ask questions or comment on this application. If you would like to speak, please come up to the podium, and you will need to provide your name and address, and you will be sworn in.
Seeing none, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close.
Mr. Hughes with the motion to close. Second by Anne Marie. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, anything else from the professionals? John? You're good? Good?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I just want to add, I talked to John, and he indicated there's no history of any kind of violations or anything since they've been operating approval, so everything's been on the up and up. And then it's actually just a question from Mr. Butler. So along with, prior to the CO, the residential use to the north being abandoned when that lease expires, there was a temporary trailer south of like the permanent office building on the site. That's still going to go away when that occurs prior to a full CO, or is the applicant have any intent to want to make that a permanent installation?
The current idea is to take that, to remove that. If the board remembers, there was testimony at the last hearing about a new office off-site. That's still the aim.
Okay.
The property may be a different property, but the aim is to take that off.
Okay, so if the applicant ever wanted to make it permanent, they would come back, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right. You sure?
We like you guys.
And you're going to abide by all conditions of the prior approval?
Yes, we're not asking for any relief from the prior conditions of approval.
Okay, do you have any more you want to add? I think.
No, I think that's it.
This is,
Except to thank you for your time.
Well, thank
Good
you,
and good questions.
I'm glad that we got through this application in less than an hour, not like last time.
Well, yeah, we had 15 hearings,
Yeah,
and then I had another 2 years of court.
yeah. So anyway, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application. Everything seems in line, and we know that the property has been properly moving forward from their last visit with us, so I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion. I think that everything the applicant has put before the board seems in order. They were able to successfully answer all the questions that were asked of them, and I think as long as all the regulations regarding the conditions of the tanks being put in are met and everybody signs off on it, I have no reason to see why we can't go forward with this.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Ryan. Roll call?
Mr. Barillo?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco? Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Scottson?
Yes.
Chairman Mertens?
I can concur with Mr. Hughes and Mr. Ryan. Everything looks great. Thank you. You guys have been fabulous having you over there.
Perfect.
So I approve yes as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Motion carries, application is
Thank you.
approved.
Okay, at this time, would anybody like to take a brief recess? Mr. Hughes says he's good. So we're going to go right to the next application.
Thank you all.
Oh. Okay, next application is case number BA 25-17 Wyckoff Mills Road LLC for a use variance. Application of Wyckoff Mills Road LLC is applicant and owner seeking approval to operate a trade contractor business, landscape business, or flex space for a remote service provider on the property. The existing building is to be utilized for the proposal use, and it appears that all existing improvements are to remain. The only proposed improvements are the striping of 8 parking stalls and the installation of concrete wheel stops on the premise known as Block 143, Lot 26.01, 572 Wyckoff Mill Road. This application was originally scheduled to be heard on February 23rd, 2026, when the meeting was canceled due to a little snow. The expiration is March 31st, 2026. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Bob McGowan. I'm an attorney. I have the honor of representing the applicant on this particular application.
If I just, you know, you could sit down if you prefer. There's a microphone.
Oh,
right
okay.
there.
That's fine. Sure.
Yep, if you're more, either way.
Either way. Okay. I just got back from being in Europe, so I don't want to fall asleep. So better to stand.
It's my job.
Oh, okay. That's good. As the chairman indicated, this application is to take a very unique property, uniquely shaped. It's really a leftover piece from the residential development, and convert it into a more active and functional use. And so we've asked that a number of different uses be approved as an approved use, realizing that each of those uses may have different characteristics that the board may want to and will probably want to address during a site plan review. We have a particular user in mind at the moment. It is a local contractor, basically does home improvement kind of work. He and his wife work together. They would set up an office there. They would have their tradesmen or their employees come to the building, pick up supplies, leave the property, and go work for the day. There is no intent to have any retail business on this property whatsoever. The feeling is that by having an active use placed at the site, it actually becomes safer as well as more productive. The site is being used and has been used for a considerable period of time as a cell tower. The cell tower exists on a water tower that was originally developed for the community that's next to it. Over time, of course, the water tower was abandoned in use, but continues to be structurally sound and continues to support at least 3 different cell tower operators. With that said, I would like to again call our engineer Obviously, I'd also like the confirmation that the notice is acceptable and that we have jurisdiction.
Yes, Bob, the board has jurisdiction to proceed, and I think the chairman prefers to swear in all your professionals at the same time.
All right, well, I have two professionals who are here, and also the owner is here and is going to
Swear.
provide some testimony. So, if you
If
will.
we have questions for the owner, he can come up, and then we can swear him, and then
That's fine.
that's,
Okay, so the two professionals
we'll see what we
are
can
here.
do with,
Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, state your names for the record, spell your last.
Christine Cofone, Cofone.
Michael Wesolowski. That's
Spell that, please, slowly.
Weselowski.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so we'll get his qualifications, and then we can,
Michael, would you please provide the board with a summary of your qualifications
Certainly.
and experience?
I'm a principal engineer with Short Point Engineering, a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 2010. My license is current and in good standing. Provided testimony in front of various land use boards throughout the state, including this board.
okay, thank you, we accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, we have a review letter of November 7th from T&M. Do you want to address that, or how would you like to start?
Usually I provide an overview kind of the project, and
Good.
at some time we can go through the letter.
Okay.
If you would, bring up the recently submitted exhibit titled Aerial Image, if that's available.
He's working on it.
Okay.
Is that a new exhibit? Or is that-
No, that was emailed in advance of the hearing.
And Mr.
Area.
Chair, while we're bringing something up,
A10.
it's a question for Mr. McGowan. So we said the water tank that's there, that is no longer active, that used to service the villages community to the south of this?
My understanding in reviewing the history is that this was developed by Howell. This property was part of, 1940 photos show that this was actually a working farm at this point, at that time, rather. The existing building, in fact, seems to be in the footprint of maybe the house that existed at that time. But in any event, this property was part of the Hobville development, which is next door, which is 200 and some units, I believe, or maybe 300 units. So Hobville used this sliver of property as its operating center for both running that development, for building the water tower, which I assume they were required to build at that time as part of the development, and also running initially the association out of that. Finally, when the community building was built, they left this structure and went to Dag Hamstel Boulevard or whatever, number 1. But it's that building, the community building at the front of the development. After that, there was sporadic use maybe by some of the service people for the cell towers, but beyond that, there really has been an empty or vacant building for most of that
So
time.
the tower itself, does it actually have water that services the
To the
Hobville
best
site?
of my knowledge, no.
Okay, so, and then there is a history of prior approvals for the different cell carriers on that. Do you have any information for the board on what the terms of any leases for those cell carriers on the tower and when those expire and, you know?
I don't, but as I say, the principal of the applicant is here tonight, and he has had negotiations on that. He
Okay.
acquired this, I believe, through a second tier of a tax sale on this property, and has gone through a lot of efforts in trying to figure out. The leases apparently were made with Hobville, rather, and he'll testify to it, in such a manner that they prepaid the lease, and as a result, there is no current income or at that point, it appeared there was no current income. I believe that he was able to make some progress on that with one or more of the cell tower providers. He can provide that information to you.
Yeah, and you know, that's the reason I bring it up, because they do need use variance for multiple uses, not just the couple that they want to get as part of this application, but, you know, for that second structure and uses on there, it's multiple uses, so we want to get more detail on it.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we do want to retain the cell tower use, obviously, but we want to add something where the building and the rest of the property can be productively used. Okay, Mike?
Sure. All right, the exhibit before you this evening is titled Aerial Image, 572 Wyckoff Mills Road. And if we need to mark that in the record or not yet? It is,
So
perfect.
it's A10?
Okay, this image shows the subject property outlined in white in the approximate center of the page. And as you can see, as Mr. McGowan stated, it is a very uniquely shaped piece of property in that it is quite deep and quite narrow. The dimensions of that lot, its depth is about 690 feet. The first 500 feet of that has a width of 60 feet, and then that opens to a 100-foot width for the last 200 feet of its depth. And the reason I mention all those dimensions, as you'll hear throughout our presentation this evening, is the typically required buffer along the north, east, and southerly property lines thereby encompasses the entirety of the parcel. The subject property is zoned ARE1, has frontage to the west along Wyckoff Mills Road, across from which lie two First Financial Credit Union buildings within the HD1 zone. To the north lies the Adelphia Cemetery. To the northeast lies a single-family home development. Both of those are also zoned ARE1. And to the east and south lies the Villages Residential Development, zoned R4. If we could then pan to the submitted use variance plan. This was the submitted use variance plan? Correct.
Mike, while we're waiting, can you go over those dimensions again? You said it was 60 feet wide?
Sure, so that front portion that you see is a
Yeah,
little bit narrower.
in the beginning.
That's about 60 feet in width.
And what's the total length?
Total length is about 690 feet.
And as far as acreage, does it come to an acre?
1.14,
Oh,
unfortunately.
1.4. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can everybody see this? You want to, okay. I was wondering if you want to zoom in on it.
A4, John?
No, completely different town. There was multiple pieces of PDFs on that flash drive.
It should have been submitted with the,
Yeah, that would have been submitted with the original application.
Garden State Parkway.
Pay no attention to what's on the screen. There you go.
Yeah, it looks a little better.
Okay, so this was our submitted use variance plan, the top half of which depicts the property existing condition, then the bottom portion depicts the minor improvements to the site. Walking you through what exists today, the site, contains an asphalt driveway coming into the site and some gravel areas. The building toward the rear of the property is approximately 1,800 square feet in size. It's a single story. Directly behind that is an approximately 80 square foot shed. Obviously, we discussed the water tower as well as numerous ground-mounted electrical equipment, all of which supports the various cell tower uses on that water tower. Following the northerly property line from Wyckoff Mills Road are utility poles and overhead lines that service the building and equipment at the rear. Again, coming in from Wyckoff Mills Road, you have a driveway apron which quickly tapers down to an approximately 11-foot wide driveway. And that driveway comes into the site about 300 feet. Then you'll see that driveway width opens up to an approximate 40-foot wide asphalt portion, about 190 feet further in, and at that point you've encountered the existing building. Now adjacent to that wider driveway portion is an additional 8-foot wide gravel strip that then opens up on the south end of the building to provide and function as a loading area to that building, where there's a single overhead door in the approximate center of the southern building wall. And then finally, wrapping generally along the southern and easterly property lines is a fencing of various types. Then moving down to the proposed condition.
Excuse me, sir?
Yes,
I'm sorry. How do you pronounce your name again?
Michael's fine.
Michael's fine? Okay. The existing building, is it one story or two-story?
It is one story despite, I believe, the survey labeling it as two.
Two-story, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, as you may have read, the property itself is the subject of several existing nonconformities, which I'll simply identify. The proposed, or minimum lot width, 200 feet is required, whereas 59.9 feet exists. Minimum side yard setback, 40 feet is required, where, this is a minor correction, 19.1 feet exists at the north side of the building. And finally, maximum lot coverage, 30% is required, whereas 38.9% exists.
We can't get the A4, like, we can't.
Yeah, the improvements you see here are, again, minor in nature. We're proposing to stripe 8 10-foot wide by 19-foot deep spaces, and that includes one ADA space, as well as the adjacent access aisle. Concrete wheel stops are being provided within each stall in lieu of any curbing. And those 8 spaces address the parking requirements for the proposed portion of the office and warehouse sections of the building, in addition to providing for 4 anticipated spaces for fleet vehicles. Within that rear, or I guess side yard loading area, you'll see there's a call out for protective bollards around a piece of existing infrastructure to remain.
Before you move on for now, Mike,
Yeah.
what is that? So I think
Yeah.
the rest of the stuff, I think is closer to the water tank and the cell tower, so that's probably the cell tower equipment. What is the one that's in the middle of that gravel area?
I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, the bulk of the equipment here is electrical in nature. There are some remnants of water-related infrastructure as well. As part of our site plan application and survey revisions, we'll clarify any of those remaining items on the parcel.
Yeah, so we don't have any photos, or the applicant doesn't have any idea what that is? I mean, they bought the property, I would hope they know what's on their property.
Well, wait.
We'll wait, so
Okay,
yeah.
so-
we'll want to clarify when he comes up,
That's
but
fine,
just,
we will do that.
The proposed building is going to be one story or two-story?
One.
Okay, so, okay.
Just, the proposed building is the building that's there. It's already been substantially cleaned up and improved and renovated. But
So the renovations are just interior renovations that are going to happen?
No, there are pictures that have been provided which show you the existing condition of the building as it's been improved. And so the floor space may change internally a little bit, but the building is not being expanded up, sideways, length.
Yeah, but
no change.
internally, you're going to, because you said you're going to have a flex space, so there will
Well,
be...
right, how much office versus how
Yeah,
much storage?
okay, but
has gotta
everything's going to
addressed.
be inside.
But everything will be inside the existing parameter of the
Okay.
building. Okay?
yeah, so maybe it might be a little bit more beneficial for the applicant to come up. I get you have 8 parking spaces, Mike, and you want to acquaint us to what the site is, but I think we need to know, like, what's the proposed use on the site, and then what,
Okay.
Sure, makes sense.
might give more context to the board.
Yeah, good idea.
It's a little hard to follow.
There's
That's
multiple
fine.
things on here, so it's not clear.
Let's do that. Let's have, you want to have Brian come up? We'll
Yeah, I'm fine with that, absolutely.
interrupt for the moment. Brian?
You swear the testimony I'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. State your name for the record, spell your last.
Brian Portilla, Portilla.
You can sit down or stand, whatever. Was that with an I or a Y? I'm sorry. Aye, thank you.
And you're the managing principal of the applicant, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's answer the one question that we were...
We got to swear him in?
I did.
You just did.
I'm sorry.
Bobby
Yeah,
just
you were,
did.
you were still in New York when you were sworn in.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
So that small, I guess, figure on the survey there is a concrete pad with a large pump for the previous water flowing system for the water tower. There's two of those. There's one on, I guess, the southerly side in the stone area, and then there's another one that says WC Equipment behind the water tower.
So those aren't being used?
They're not being used, no.
Do you have any intention of removing them,
I did, that was one thing that just didn't get done. I just kind of left them, they're old relics, you know, I'm like, didn't want to destroy them, you know. I'll find a new home for them at some point and remove them.
I mean, if the water tower's not active, is there, like, why can't you remove them?
I can.
Okay. Is that something the applicant, you'll agree to as a condition of approval if the board acts favorably?
Yeah.
Okay. And then can you provide us some clarity on the cell tower leases, your understanding since you purchased the property?
Yeah, so the cell tower lease is 40 years, 15 of which have expired. So 2050 is the, the termination date or extension.
Okay. So, and can you provide a copy of that for the board's record so it can become part of this potential approval?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess the question that I also think, there's a lease for the cell tower equipment on the water tank, right? But I imagine the water tank, especially since it's not in use by the water company anymore, there's going to be a useful life on that. So what happens when the water tank starts to fall apart?
I know they're responsible for the upkeep of the tank.
The cell carrier?
The cell carrier, yeah. This is, the broker, I guess you would say, is American Tower. And so they're the ones I deal with, in regards to the lease, legalities, and things like that. So once it needs, it's pretty well kept, but, over time, I guess, another coat of paint. I did address that with them, and they said I looked at the lease, and it was a part of their obligation.
Is the lease with just one cell company, or is it more than one?
It was originally OmniPoint, it's AT&T, and it was Nextel, I think, or now it's Sprint. So I think there's two left, because Nextel is no longer in existence.
So currently, it's two different companies that are leasing
Yeah.
space there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no revenue from it, it was sold as is, all the debts were wiped out for, there was $16 million that they were recovering, but, so there was...
Well, explain that a little bit. How did you get into this property? Was it a tax foreclosure, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is a property I found on Crexy. A gentleman from New York bought it at auction. He reassigned it to me. It wasn't super desirable because, there's easements, there was thousands of pages of litigation, and this was owned by Shant Hovnanian. He passed away, the son assumed it, and there was a big tax recovery lien on it. The big drawback was the easement for the cell tower is $15,000 a year for this, for this property as.
Hey, Bob, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm not sure what's the financial arrangements got to do with a land use application?
That's,
You know what I'm saying?
That's fine.
The only technical question I have is that if you're saying the cell tower companies are responsible for maintenance of the water tower, correct? What if they don't? What if it needs it, you're the owner, you're the applicant coming here for a use variance? So if the cell tower company doesn't do what they're supposed to do and the tower is crumbling, will you agree to maintain the tower?
Yeah, that's why I addressed it with them. I reached out and, I looked at the lease and I reached out because, if it does require maintenance, I need to be prepared to, I build, I fix things, I do things. And so, I was kind of eyeing it up saying, this is a big project. So I looked into it and it turns out they are responsible. If they don't, step up and handle it, I'm going to have to, right?
Well, I guess the question is if the board would act favorably on your application as a condition of approval, would you agree to that?
Yeah, that has to be in there.
Right?
I don't see how he could refuse. He's the owner
Yeah.
of the property. quite frankly.
Well,
So-
we're hearing testimony about lessees and they're responsible, but they're not before the board.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking.
Sure.
And this is a little atypical situation. Most times it's owned by a operating utility company or a municipality, and it's in their best interest to maintain their infrastructure, being that there's an entity that no longer operates the water tower, that's where the board's coming from in that regard.
Right, at least by stepping forward, Brian has improved the situation. Now you have an active owner who is seeking to make the property functional. So, anyway, continuing as to, what other questions, are there any other questions at the moment? I'm going to ask Brian to come back up to testify to some things.
Okay, well-
The TNF letter.
Yeah, I do have
What
a
about the
question.
proposed uses?
Yeah, the use.
Sorry.
What are the what are you asking to have permission to do on the property?
So, small business, small trade business, no retail, not a huge amount of traffic, I'm a small business owner myself, and, I see the need for spaces for small businesses, for trade businesses, flex space and that sort of thing, and it's just laid out ideally for it. There's parking in the front, there's, the building, and it was traditionally used, so that's the use.
I would
Okay.
think,
Your ideal your perceived users are tradesmen, you mean contractors, plumbers, electricians, home improvement people, building
Yes.
people such as yourself or whatever. Flex spaces because you see it used both as an office and as a storage facility, is that correct?
And it would only ever be one,
There would only ever be
User?
one user, yes.
Can-
The
can-
building wouldn't accommodate more than one user
Yeah.
in a functional way. So you agree that there'd only be one tenant at a time using the property?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
can we get a commitment on types of vehicles? I mean, we don't want, obviously 18-wheelers aren't going on this property, but
We're, at this point, we're applying for those type of uses to be permitted, providing that the board is satisfied that that particular user is going to be using it a proper way.
What do you mean?
Do you have someone in
Yeah,
mind?
yeah.
He has someone in mind at this point, so I just want to sort of say that while we're asking for flexibility, in other words, if the tenant he has in mind for some reason doesn't proceed, or 2 years from now decides that they want to move to a larger facility, that he can replace it with not exactly the same user, but a plumber, or he can replace
Right.
it with an electrician.
but I think for the board to understand the use, they need to understand what type of vehicles have the potential to go to the site.
All right. And part of that, though, is that it would be subject to what I'm suggesting, and we can certainly go into it further if you like, but is that we could address those issues more thoroughly at site plan. And in that site plan, because this is bifurcated, we're simply looking at uses tonight, but that's not, if you want to start to limit some things tonight, that's fine too.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
only
what you wanna do?
concern, the only concern with, as soon as I heard fleet vehicles, my tentacles went up. Because a definition of a fleet vehicle can be anything from a SUV or a car to an 18-wheeler. You can, or something, something that, or a half truck. So the space, and there's some conversation going on over there, but I would assume the space, because of the width of that driveway and the positioning of vehicles and moving things around, even though you do have that 40-foot wide space, it might be a challenge to have a larger vehicle. So you probably would have to limit the size. It would have to be limited to the size of the vehicle over there.
yes, we've had,
Pickup trucks, vans,
yes, we've had issues in the past where bigger vehicles go into a property and have to back out and then block the road. So it would have to be something that can go in and turn around so it can circulate.
So, wait, there was a picture put up there as to a theoretical vehicle for a moment ago, no? Somebody just put up a van picture. I mean, I think the concept of what you're saying is you'd be talking about personal cars, you're talking about pickup trucks, you're talking about regular size vans, maybe a box truck once in a while, but that probably is more for delivery, would you agree?
yeah.
Than for use of the contractor.
It's more so tools, tool storage, and then some administrative. That's pretty much it, some material. It's pickup trucks.
Would you agree, as a condition of any approval, that, the only types of vehicles permitted on the site would be cars up to pickup truck size and
Yeah, that's not
whatever box truck for deliveries?
Right.
Yeah, I would think
Small
contractor vans and things like
Right.
that are fine, because they can get in and turn around.
Right.
It just-
UPS. box
Yes.
trucks, maybe UPS.
Yeah, UPS is a good,
Brian, are you also considering a workshop in that building?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to consider a workshop in that building for yourself? Like if you get a kitchen cabinets and you build them, you would need a workshop to do certain jobs.
Right.
So if you have flex space and you rent it, you'd still want to have a shop and you'd want to have your office for your customers coming in to see it.
Yeah.
So, consider that while you're here.
I'm here for the board's recommendations,
Well, you tell us what you want. and
Yes,
how you want
yeah, so
It doesn't quite work that way, but
Yeah, so, I don't know how the board feels comfortable tonight, but it might be beneficial for the applicant to maybe carve up a statement of operations and intended users and so we have a framework that it's not, we're going in circles with the testimony. I think it was trade contractor, landscape contractor, flex space. I'm concerned about the landscape contractor business because we've had a number of those and there's, outdoor storage for bulk materials, for hardscapes and things like that. Landscape contractors do snow plowing, they might be operating during storms 24/7 kind of thing. Is that anticipated? I know you just put it in there, but like,
Well, there needs to remain a 24-hour right-of-way for the cell tower access, any repairs, maintenance, so there can't be anything stacked up and in the way of that.
yeah, so are you saying you still want to have a landscape contractor operate from the site, or that's something you're ruling out?
Likely not landscape, it would be more contractor.
Well, that's your
More-
preference, but here's Charlie's, landscapers also have trailers, and even though you say that you'd be okay with smaller vehicles, when you put the trailer on, it's going to be very difficult to, make turns. So we kind of have to have a little bit more of a feel where we can draw the line before. I understand we can go to site plan and then we can,
Yeah, and I think, Bob, it might behoove the applicant to like do a little bit harder thinking because, there's something from like a mom and pop guy that does plumbing or HVAC and he's got a contractor's work truck versus like an AJ Perry operating from this site, right? There's certainly a lot more fleet vehicles. And, I think the board, they're not always looking to like limit you to a specific number. If you have plans to grow or like, like 4 fleet vehicles, I can see on your site plan there, you got 8 spaces, but there's clearly more pavement to accommodate more spaces. So I think we want a more comprehensive in a written document, so that way, right now, you're just like relying on the board to tell you,
Right, I think it's difficult for the board to vote for a use variance when they're not entirely sure what the use they're
well,
approving.
Christine is here too, but I don't.
but also too, I'd like to bring up the term flex space. I mean, that is always like kind of an alarm bell. It's not really what you have here, you're just going to lease some space. So maybe if they're going to write up something that defines that flex space or just turn it into, leased garage, leased office space.
And then also put in there too,
Yeah,
get rid of the roof,
yeah.
yeah, because that connotes.
Yeah, from a
Exactly.
real estate standpoint, being a person in real estate, that brings up like office, brings up big buildings. Obviously, you can't put that here, but maybe we're kind of mixing up flex space and we're leasing out some garage space and some office space.
And also keep in mind too, there's going to be things within the building from an insurance standpoint that you're not going to be able to do in there. So that's something to keep in mind too, as you're planning out what you would like that space to be and give it a better vision.
Well, I know, I want the space to be kept neat, you know, landscapers, 100%, it's piles of mulch, it's piles of soil, I have no interest in that. I mean, we could almost X the landscaper out. This is low volume, low in and out, it's material storage.
We should
or-
put some exclusions in, because if you don't, you're going to have people come in that will outgrow you, and it's your place.
Right.
And, you know, certain ones, even like, say, I won't name a company, but they keep adding trucks, and they adding employees, and they get more and more, when really, you can add a truck, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and have, you know, customers, but you don't want anybody coming in there that's going to crowd you out, and you're going to have code enforcement problems.
Yeah, that would have to be explained in the lease, 100%. It's
Because it
limited
makes it
to X
easier for
amount.
us to give you an approval.
Yeah.
We can submit a list of parameters, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, exactly.
And-
Yeah,
and-
you nailed it.
The ordinance section that does apply is 188-4, which defines trade contract businesses, and that's what we're looking to, conform with. So, and landscaper would be out, and we understand the flex space is perhaps confusing. We're not going to have several users, which is normally what you think of in flex
I figured it
space.
was too small to do that.
Yeah,
but
we
it's-
really meant, we didn't know how much storage
It's
there
just
was
one of
going to be
those
versus how much office.
Yeah.
So, that's fine, we
Yeah, yeah,
can
exactly.
eliminate that reference as well. With the understanding that we will compile a parameters list to submit to the professionals of the board. Are there any other questions right now, or Brian? He's here, he's not going anywhere, he'll be,
What about your hours of operation for your business?
well, he's not going to be
Oh.
the tenant.
Okay.
He's not moving in there.
Okay.
So
So
anybody
that's
who,
another thing,
Yeah.
we need to know
Yes, yeah.
hours of
That's part of
operation.
the perimeters, right? We
That's part of the
agree, for
perimeters,
instance,
yeah.
there's an ordinance, I think you can't operate between 6 and 10, or 6 PM and 10 a, no, 10 PM to 6 AM, I'm sorry. So that's a time slot that we would look at,
Excuse me, you're not going to be in the building at all?
I mean, I live in Howell, I live 5
I
minutes from
I
there.
thought you were, the office
you're not
was
gonna-
Yeah, that's what I
yours.
thought.
No, I'm not going to.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah,
I
he's-
thought
he's
you were
looking
gonna
to
have an
find a
office and
tenant.
workshop.
Yeah.
This is all tenants.
This is a tenant property.
Okay, well, I'm
property.
glad that was made clear, because I'm
Sorry about that.
looking at it differently.
Yeah.
This will be a single user tenant,
Okay,
and he has the one in mind, which
All right, well,
will help us define what we're going to do.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
you mentioned earlier that there is a tenant in mind. Who,
Do you want to tell them a little bit about what you're hoping to put in there?
It's a home renovation, Mike's Handyman Express, a local,
I know Mike,
yeah.
yeah, we all know Mike.
Oh, that's who it is.
so that's who you have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of his vehicles get taken home by the employees. He has maybe, 3, 4 trucks that would stay on site, a few trailers, and that's it.
So something of, a tenant of that nature.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and the parameters, a list of parameters would be very helpful to us
Sure. So we'll commit to that.
to narrow things and
Exactly.
make it a little tighter.
Yeah, because someone like a Mike's, like a Mike's, would be somebody storing tools, maybe some materials, nothing flammable or anything like that. But like that would kind of be for lack of a better way of saying it, like an ideal example of a parameter list or, criteria that you would provide.
Yeah.
Are we having the engineer come back up?
I would, yeah, if we
Okay.
can. So.
I'll hold off other questions for him.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, Mike, you come back and pick it up? Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, why not?
Real quick question, Mike. How long do you think your testimony is going to be? Because we're getting to close to 8:30. Some of us may need to take a break.
Yeah, my direct testimony was almost wrapped up.
Okay,
After that, we
you
can-
finish up and then we'll
Okay, perfect.
put it on pause then. Thanks.
Okay, just finishing up with the discussion of the proposed improvements, and for lack of a better term, the last improvement I was going to mention was, you can see at the north end of the site there is an area of pavement encroachment into the northerly property. That would be removed. And then finally, I was just going to simply touch on utility service. We mentioned the incoming overhead line that generally runs along that northerly property line to service the infrastructure in the rear. The building then is also served by public sewer and water. And then apart from going through the review memos with the professionals, that was everything I had direct. So if it's in, you'd like to take a break.
No, first, Charlie?
Yeah, so, I think, we need to have a more clearly defined operation statement with like, here's the type of, I know we're saying plumbers and, HVAC and that kind of stuff, but, on the site plan here, you show 8 parking spaces. I can clearly see there's more payment to accommodate more parking spaces. We would just want to have a framework on what's the maximum extent that, like, you're anticipating any type of tenant. It seems like Mike's handyman, you should be able to sit with him and say, what do you have, what do you intend to grow to? I think one of the concerns that the boards always have with these kind of uses is, every business starts out as, I'm doing this, and then, oh, maybe I could do a little bit more. If I get this piece of equipment, maybe I could do a little bit more. So that's always the concern is, does the site start out as one thing and then the use and the user spirals into something else? So having something as a written document just makes it easier for the board to put it in a resolution. So we know, and future owners of this property and operators know what they're tied to. I also think, Mike, you need to take a look at the Fire Bureau's memo, because they had some questions regarding the ingress and egress,
Next on my list.
appropriate widths. I think you also need to take a look at the gravel area on the site, south of the building, and see when that was put in, and if that doesn't have any history of being like historically used as such, and it was added by the current property owner. If that's over a 1/4 acre, that's gonna cause issues for you, especially with the driveway expansion. So you're gonna need to look into that. I would also just encourage the applicant, right, anything that could be a peripheral to a trade contractor. If you're anticipating any type of outside storage racks for, if it's a plumber for, pipes and excess from a job and things like that, we need to kind of have an idea where that's gonna be on the site. The Villages is a long-standing residential community that's been there for a very long time, and is in close proximity to the south part of this site, so I wouldn't be surprised if, if those folks are gonna be concerned with what's going on this site. So we just need to have a comprehensive, and a lot of times when the board's asking applicants questions, think about growth, think about what they might wanna do. They're not always looking to limit to you, they just kind of want to have a full extent of it, so that way, 10 years from now, when it's a different zoning officer and none of us are here, we all know what the actual approval for the property is for, so.
Are you potentially suggesting, and if you know, that's great too, that gravel area was indeed installed outside of permits?
So, I mean, talking with John, I don't know that a lot of the stuff to the building were installed with permits too. We question about whether the roof was replaced with permits. I know that, I'm not saying that the pictures that the applicant provided, obviously there's been, I think, improvements to the structure, like, in a positive way, but, I think some things were done without approvals, and that's gonna need to be rectified as after the fact. The gravel, I look at it 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm not seeing anything prior to that. So you're going to have to provide me some pretty compelling evidence that it existed. Otherwise, you're going to have to make good for that. And I would just start thinking about it now, even if this is a bifurcated application.
Understood.
Appreciate it.
What about signage?
We hadn't anticipated the sign, knowing that that's an additional variance and knowing the intended users, that there would be no, say, customer base to the site. The employees would know where they're going and wouldn't need a sign to locate it.
Is there, and forgive me because I'm just forgetting, because I even though we drive up and down, I just want to make sure, is there an existing like address, like numbers or anything at the foot of the driveway at all, or Brian at all?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Kind of just to go off what Charlie was saying a bit, for any site plan, I think, looks like there's a variety of different fences around the property. There's some chain link fence, there's some wood fence. I think, it might be nice to see the fencing cleaned up a little bit, whatever you're proposing. And, we talked about those two, water tower equipments that aren't being used, but there's a bunch of different stuff all over the site, so if we could see the site cleaned up, not just illustrated or discussed. However you think you're going to handle trash, if a trash enclosure is needed, we typically require those to be masonry block, so just things like that.
Yeah, I would, like I said, I think I would just encourage the applicant to talk to Mike's handyman, and also think of anyone that might fall under a trade contractor umbrella, because we've had a couple of those come through. We had a guy that did interior renovations for like fire suppression on commercial, and he had, lifts and things like that. I think anything that you could anticipate, the board wants to know where it's going to be stored and things like that, because, well, it's not a site plan yet. I think those kind of go with the use, so we need more specifics.
Okay.
I think one of the,
Go ahead.
because I think it would make sense for us to get all this together and come back, obviously, and not just continue, for the evening. But with that said, one of our concerns is because of the shape of the property, obviously we can't comply with buffering and so forth. One of the previous approvals, in fact, addressed the buffering, and they were required to put 13 trees on the residential side of the fence if they were going to proceed, or show that it was rejected by the community. Looking at the picture, it seems like those trees may have been installed along that one section there. I don't know that to be true, but I am saying that, it was an issue that was previously addressed. And I hear about the fencing and the mismatch and things like that.
Well, that would be brought up at, we went to a site plan.
Well, and I
approval.
understand that, but I do want to get at least a sense from the board that it is understood that we can't possibly comply with the buffering. I mean, the property at one point is only 56
No, I
feet
kind
wide.
of,
So, we're going to
Yeah,
need relief from that. Okay.
I get it.
And also like the length of the road and things. And yes, Mike and I talked before. Mike is going to, or his office is going to reach out to the fire people and talk about how do you get the fire truck in and so forth. But don't forget, it is an existing facility, and the things that are most likely to cause fire problem are already there. So obviously, all we can do is improve the situation. The situation itself already exists.
Mr. McGowan, listen, normally we get all the testimony in, and then we open the public.
Right.
But we have somebody here from the public. I think
Let's
it would
do
be a good idea to at least let them give us their take, so that way you can hear it, and then you can address it next meeting.
Sure, absolutely. Let's do it.
So at this time, I'd like to make a motion for open to public.
I'll make a motion to open.
Second by Mr. Barillo.
This chairman has opened the hearing up for members of the public to ask questions or comment on this application. If you would like to speak, please come up to the podium. You will need to provide your name and address, and you will be sworn in.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board.
Hi.
First, we'll get you sworn in, and
You
then it's all
swear or
yours.
affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record and spell your last.
Sean Gaffney, S-H-A-W-N, G-A-F-F-N-E-Y.
Thank you.
Okay, it's all yours.
I'd like to state also, I am from 565 Wyckoff Mills Road, which is directly across from the property. From the window of my property, I can see, oh yes, move a little bit more to the left. So this is First Financial Bank. If you go a little south, that is my house. So I can see across to the driveway. I know when somebody's making a K-turn in their driveway because they're going the wrong way in Wyckoff Mills Road. I'm familiar with the property. To my understanding, this variance is coming forward due to concerns of children climbing the water tower because it's primarily a vacant property other than cell carriers coming to maintain it every once in a while, and that is what encouraged a variance for active use. I'm familiar with this story at the Starbucks at the corner just past NJ Transit. There's no need to scroll all the way down to it. Just understand there is a Starbucks at the corner. There was conversation about the children going to the water tower and at the baseball field that's vacant right beside it. We at 565 Wyckoff Mills Road do encourage that the site be actively used. We also encourage that the cell tower still remains. Internet in this area is already pretty bad when it's a cloudy day. And nowadays, when there's snowstorms, everyone has to move to Zoom, whether you're going to school or whether you're working office work. So it's very important that this infrastructure stays and, if possible, is expanded, but I understand that's not part of the conversation, but it should definitely remain. As for its use for a contractor, we're also familiar with Mike's handyman. We don't mind him being across the street. We will leave it to the board about concerns about egress and outgress and site plan concerns. We do have the same concerns, but we understand that you are the ones with the authority at the end of the day. We do not mind, once again, if it is an active site, but please emphasize the fact that it is to keep children from entering the site illegally. Concerns about fencing should answer to that. Concerns about lighting should answer to that. Concerns about surveillance should answer to that. And yes, children should not be encouraged to go to this area. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McGowan, I think that's,
That was great.
we had it first, we'll close. So, anybody else? Okay, motion.
Very good.
Anne Marie, Pat on the second. We are now closed. So, I think it was good that we had,
Oh,
okay.
one thing,
Yeah,
we
okay,
have
go
a
ahead.
date, a return date, and without further notice. Can we do
What was that?
Can we have a return date without further notice?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, fire department, yeah.
The engineer brought up that he was going to go over the fire, or it could be done.
That was my initial plan. I think, given the discussions, it would make more sense to come back, as we said, with a more complete response.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, kind of if we know
Yeah.
an idea who's going in there, then we can kind of work around that. Okay, Lisa, I guess we're looking at a date.
March 23rd has 2 cases on. April 13th has 2 cases on. April 27th has nothing.
Can we do it sooner than, can we do one of either late March or early April? Will we fit? If it looks like you're going to be busy that whole
What were
night.
the days that you gave us as options?
Oh, yeah, take a look at your calendar.
March 23rd and
What about April 13th? Was April 13th an option or no?
I think she said, I didn't catch the date, but
They
she
took
did
my
say
paper.
early April.
All right. April 13th is an option?
Let the professionals
They're
look
trying to figure out
over,
how many
because they know more of the applications, so we'll,
Mr. Chairman, if they came back April the 27th, they could come on first. If you put them behind 2 people, they're not going to get heard. Well,
So the 13th, you have one application on that could be take some time on April 13th.
well, if it's going to take some time, can we have them go first?
Charlie, you think that's feasible?
Yeah, and what I can do is I can look at some of the board's prior approvals for like trade contractors type of uses and maybe give that to the applicant so they can kind of see what, prior users might have agreed to, just to give them a framework of what the board's looking to, and that might help them streamline it. And like I said, it looks like you have more space for parking there, Mike, so, think about how many you need for the office and think about how many you need for fleet vehicles and back into that, and, assume some growth along, within reason with what the site can accommodate. Don't necessarily hamstring the applicant to, 4 if there's 6 or 8 that could accommodate with some additional vehicle parking for employees.
Perfect. that'd be great. So, April 13th?
Okay, we need an expiration date, new expiration date. Do they need to
March
renotice?
31st, 2023.
So Bob, will you carry till the end of April?
Sure,
The current
absolutely.
expiration is
March 31st.
March 31st, so now it'll be April 30th?
April 30th, correct.
April 30th is.
Okay.
Okay, so this time then I'll announce that we will reschedule this application for April 13th with an expiration of April 30th. So we will have you first on the agenda,
Thank you. All right.
and
We'll
work with Charlie and
work with them,
Christine
yes.
and Jennifer as far as that goes. Christine, I guess we'll see you back.
You will, thank you.
You'll see her many times.
Okay, we would love to say, tonight, get the decision made, but it's just too much.
Agreed, absolutely agreed. Thanks for all the input from everyone, including the residents. That was very helpful.
Okay. In-house, we have, Charlie did bring some notes tonight, but I'm looking at the time. Well, I mean, we got to.
Matt, he's got a voracious appetite for...
Charlie, I mean, we're good. Nick, do you want to do it before the meeting? The only issue with before the meeting is some of us are coming from work. I know Jose's coming from work, I'm coming from work, and I'm now getting busy, so I'm thinking if,
it's just sometimes, we think it's going to be an early night. and
Yeah.
It doesn't turn out to be an early night.
I understand.
And then we're never
That's-
going to get the classes in.
Okay,
How long is yours, Charlie, or possible?
Try to keep it under a half hour. If you want me to stop and I'm being long-winded, you can tell me to stop in the middle of it.
yeah. What time? Does anybody need to take a quick break? Otherwise, we'll start 9:15.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have I guess we won't do it tonight, but for the next one, I have a ethics.
Yeah, we want to get,
Piece for
yeah,
board
and what we'll
members.
probably do for that one, Andy, is we will, to Mr. Barillo's suggestion, maybe if yours is going to be a little, maybe under a half hour,
Yeah.
we can meet at 6:30.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's do that. So Andy, should we close the meeting
Yeah.
at this time?
Well, this is theoretically still open to the public, though, because it's a quorum of the board. You're
I have no
finished-
problem with keeping it open.
Yeah, I would keep it
Yeah,
open.
and if they want to listen to Charlie for the next 25 minutes, the public can decide turn off or...
No offense, Charlie.
Yeah, none, but I do like to see, I think it's good that the public gets to see that we're doing more than just sitting here for the meeting. Okay, Charlie.
Sitting here looking good.
All right, I got some slides. I'm gonna send them to John real quick. Hopefully you can open them up and pull them up.
That wasn't clear at the start.
I thought he was,
The way it was explained, it sounded to me like he was going to be able to work.
that's what I thought. I mean, the questions I was generating was that he was the tenant, and maybe he would want a workshop. I thought he was the contractor.
Charlie, would you like some sugar?
He said that in the beginning. He says, I'm handyman, like doing work. So like, I'm addressing him on the ground until I realized he was the tenant. That's why I said to him, the landscaper just keeps building out. He gets more pickup trucks, and then he gets more wagons, and he needs more lawnmowers, so he needs more trailers. And, but that could happen if anybody puts it.
Actually, yeah, that might be helpful.
He should have a list.
Although I might start talking really fast.
And that they wouldn't generate the code enforcement because they'll be parking everywhere. 8 spaces, there are a lot of spaces. But it is a big piece of property though.
That first 60-foot
Sure.
line, that's just a driveway.
He should have, well, see, you can't park in a buffer. So
200 by 100, really. And a good part of that is taken up.
it's got to be, you said it was an acre and a quarter. So 200.
It was an acre. But that includes that long driveway too. Yeah. So the back part of the usable space is only 200 by 100, which is half an acre.
Okay, well, when I asked him, you know, was it 30 feet in the beginning, or 60 feet in the beginning, and all the way to the rear, he said 659 feet. And I said, well, how much acre is that? And he says an acre or total.
Altogether.
Yeah, all together.
But the first, what is it, 400 feet are just that long, narrow driveway.
And he needs a minimum of 20 feet he's got to use for in and out traffic. And I don't think there's enough, if he poured stone, I don't think there's enough
It's a small driveway.
that get the parking way in. And when I looked at the water tower, you know, right in the back, I didn't see any real parking behind the building.
Peter Planner, or Ed Fitzgerald wants this money on the trust fund to settle with Peter Planner. Oh, and we said, no, we can't do it. And Judge Miller,
You want to go back to the beginning? All right. All right, we'll get into it. So, John, if you go back to the beginning. All right, so a lot of these slides are from DEP. They give stormwater training to all the different review professionals for the state of New Jersey. So I've stolen a bunch of slides and kind of pared it down. So where do we come in the process, right? So each township is required to enact a stormwater control ordinance, which models the state stormwater management rules. And we kind of come in right around this spot. Review and analyze the development applications in accordance with the stormwater control ordinance. So applicant submits a stormwater management report. We do all the review of that, make sure it complies with the regulations, and make a recommendation to the board whether or not it does comply. And then the last thing is, you know, probably one of the most important is once something is built, you know, it's only as good as these systems are maintained. You know, I'm sure everyone has a stormwater basin in a development nearby and can see, you know, trash, you know, by the outlet control structure, which can impact how the basin functions. So next slide, John. The big components of the stormwater management rules is you have to provide a groundwater recharge requirement component. You also have to control quantity. So that's the volume of runoff and how quickly it leaves the site. You can't just, you know, back in the day, stormwater management was, let's get it all in pipes and get it to a stream as quickly as possible. But when you have 50 properties doing that along a stream, the person at the end of the stream is getting all that runoff and, you know, getting flooded. We also have to do quality control, so that's basically helps to manage nutrient loads coming in from fertilizers putting down on the grass, trash coming from the road, to make sure that's not going to downstream water bodies. Green infrastructure requirement, that's something that's new, that was enacted a couple years ago. You can't just have a grass bottom detention basin where you just control how the volume of water discharges. It has to have an infiltration component so you can refeed the groundwater aquifer. And then, like I said, a big component is the maintenance of these facilities. Next slide, John. So this is very basic. I'm sure everyone going back to 5th grade science with stormwater and runoff, you know, the hydrologic cycle. Stormwater is just runoff that generates and hits the ground, and then it you know, doesn't go into the groundwater. It gets discharged over land to downstream areas. What factors into how much runoff leaves the site is, you know, density of vegetation, soil, slope, surface runoff, groundwater. You know, a 50-acre farm is going to generate much less runoff to a downstream property than a 50-acre paved parking lot. You know, there's various ways that runoff can leave the site. It can either be generated to stormwater runoff, run downstream. Some of it hits the soil, infiltrates into the soil. Some of it evapotranspirates during the summer and goes back into the atmosphere. Like I said, you know, if you have a very flat property with a lot of undulations, there's more opportunity for water to get into the soils because it's sitting there. If you go to the next slide, John, you know, if you have a steeper property, you know, with maybe less roughness, more of that water is getting sent to the downstream water bodies.
This is just two separate examples, so you can see there's a lot of precipitation falling on a, densely wooded site. And there's not a whole lot of runoff being generated from that because you have a lot of opportunity for it to go into the soils and then some of it to evapotranspirate. And then what happens when you make it an urban city, right? There's much less room for things to go into the groundwater and much less, natural vegetation and grass to promote evapotranspiration, so it all ends up going to your downstream water bodies. So in summary, what's the impact of development? You have increased runoff volume and the rate at which it discharges to downstream water bodies. You can have degraded water quality if you don't have proper, infrastructure to capture sediment nutrient loads. And then also, right, you have a 50-acre farm. A lot of that water goes into the groundwater, feeds the aquifer so that like farmers can have a natural pond to use it for irrigation purposes. Now, if you put a 50-acre parking lot, all that water that was going into the aquifer is no longer, into a pond that a farmer can utilize for irrigation. It's all going to a downstream water body. This is the DEP and our stormwater control ordinance of a major development. So this is what triggers compliance with the stormwater rules. In general, it's any site that is disturbing 1 or more acres, so that's disturbing a soil on the site. If you were just milling and repaving a parking lot, that would not necessarily classify as disturbance. Or if you're creating more than a 1/4 acre of, they added all these different terms in 2022 to the stormwater rules. It used to just be impervious surface. Now there's regulated impervious surface, regulated motor vehicle surface. So it doesn't matter if you have a paved parking lot or whether it's grass that you park 500 cars on. They treat that as being impervious surface, so regulated motor vehicle surface. So you can't just buy a property and then have people parking all over the grass and say, oh, well, it's not impervious surface because it's not paved. They don't let you treat it like that anymore. So anytime you're over those thresholds, you have to comply with the stormwater rules. The big components of the stormwater design and review is there's 3 separate storm events that you're required to design for: the 2, the 10, and the 100-year storm. And basically all it is saying, for a 100-year storm, it's not necessarily saying that you're going to have that rain once every 100 years. All that means is you have a 1% chance in a given year of that storm happening. So you could have 200-year storms happen in the same year or the same month. It's just a statistic probability of saying it. So those are the storm events that we're required to design for. Every municipality or county in the state of New Jersey have different rainfall intensities because we all have a little bit different microclimates. So this kind of just shows you for like Monmouth County what are rainfall intensities for those different storms relative to the other counties. And you can even drill down further. There's a map and you can go specifically for Howell Township and it'll give you to the 100th of an inch of rain what you need to design for. And then a couple years ago, the state increased the standard. So now with resiliency, instead of just designing for year 2025 or 2026, you have to design for projected increasing rainfall intensity in year 2100. So you're adding some factor of safety. This is just a chart to show you for each storm event how much projected increase in rainfall. So for Monmouth County, for instance, right now, for year 2100, the 100-year storm is approximately 26% more volume than what the current day is. So, everyone's designing not for what exists today, we're designing now for what's going to happen in the future. So, added factor of safety. Runoff quantity control. There's a couple different ways that applicants can address that, but what most folks end up doing is you're required to reduce the peak rate of runoff, so that's the peak flow from a site, to 50% for the 2-year storm, 75% for the 10-year storm, and 80% for the 100-year storm. That's another added factor of safety when you're doing this design. It's not just merely matching the existing condition. You actually have to reduce to overcompensate for some of that. Quality control, this is anything that's creating over a 1/4 acre of regulated motor vehicle surface, so paved parking area, you have to provide 80% total suspended solid. So Old systems, you could just have a detention basin with an orifice common with the bottom of the basin, and flow was just continuously flowing out of that basin at a control rate. What you ended up finding was a lot of trash would go through there, a lot of nutrients from fertilizers would go to the downstream water bodies. You'd get algae blooms and, coastal waterways and things like that. So you have to remove those nutrients and the solids from the water so it's not impacting downstream water courses. It's just 1.25 inches over 2 hours is what that design storm for water quality purposes. Groundwater recharge, same thing. If you have a site that's completely 50 acres of farmland and now you want to make it 50 acres of parking lot, there's a deficit. There's a spreadsheet, you put in all the numbers and it tells you what your annual recharge deficit is, and they have to design their stormwater management basin to basically infiltrate a certain amount of water so that way you're replenishing the aquifer, and not impacting, farm properties and things like that. Mr. Ryan, you got a question?
Yeah, just real quick, how does snow factor
So that is a good question. So that's not necessarily addressed. It does generate runoff. I think generally the consensus is that happens much more at a natural controlled rate. If you have a foot of snow, it's not, you're going to get a 100-degree day and that's all going to be transformed into stormwater runoff. So it's not necessarily covered under the rules. Really, it's the storm events, the 2, the 10, the 100-year storm. You're designing for a certain volume over 24 hours. Usually snow is going to melt much longer over 24 hours. I think the thought is if you can design for a rain event that happens in 24 hours and control that, when a snowstorm happens, you're mitigating for that. So. I'm sure there is a calculation that tells you a foot of snow is 2 inches of rain, you know what I mean? It's like when you put ice or water and you make it ice, the volume it expands, it's not necessarily the same volume, so, yeah. So, like I said, you can't just now have like a grass bottom detention basin that has to have an infiltration component, so a lot of times we'll see the sand bottom infiltration basins. Their DEP now also pushes pervious pavement. They also push bioretention basins, so like rain garden type of infrastructure. It's all to have some ecological benefit to it. This chart just shows you the different kind of BMPs. Like I said, most of them that we're seeing on sites are sand bottom infiltration basins, some pervious pavement, bioretention systems. On homes, we will see dry wells. Dry wells are different than like an underground infiltration basin that you'll see on a commercial site. These are generally for smaller storm or venture water quality storm. It's we'll more so see these on like single lot subdivision, single lot development. Someone building on an undersized lot. It's meant to mitigate that small storm, but doesn't necessarily trigger the requirement of a major development. This would be porous pavement, so everything that lands on the pavement kind of goes through an open graded asphalt down to a stone storage base. On the right-hand side, there's an outlet control structure that has basically a hole in the side of the box that regulates how flow can go through that box to a downstream water body. This would be a bioretention basin, so same thing. It's coming into a hole in the ground, but you have to now put in soil and plantings to help, get some added factor of safety with some of that water feeding the trees and not going to the downstream water body. What's the last one? And this is your typical sand infiltration basin. And you can see you have to store each storm event 2, 10, 100-year storm without overflow into your control structure. And then you can see, this is probably a good example here. Basically, there's just a hole in the box. Sometimes it could be a 3-inch hole, sometimes it could be a rectangular opening in the box, and then that just controls the rate at which flow will flow out of the structure and down to an outflow pipe. With this water quality design storm, like I said, you have to store, up to, for an infiltration basin, up to 2 feet of water infiltrated into the soil. So when we get those small storm events, you're not getting your trash and your like fertilizers going down and out the control structure. It's either depositing and getting filtered through the sand into the groundwater, or it's laying on the surface here, and then, an HOA or a developer can come through and, scarify the sand and remove any debris. And this is just a cross-section of the control structure, right? So, sorry, Andy, I didn't mean to get you in the head with the laser pointer. But
Really blind.
as water increases, right, you don't have any discharge because there's not any opening in the box. When it gets up to this level, now it starts going through this, orifice at a controlled rate. You get a larger storm event, you have a bigger opening in the box, more flow can come out of there. And then if you get a storm event above the 100-year storm, right, you're not required to control that for the stormwater rules. So then that would overflow into the top of the structure and then out the back through a culvert pipe down to a stream. And I think this is probably the biggest, most important with all basins is the long-term maintenance, and the DEP is pushing this. I'm sure, like we said, everyone's seen the control structure where there's supposed to be a hole you can see here, and there's a mound of, trash. I've seen on a site in Upper Freehold where, a Chinese food tray, the plastic top of that got stuck on top of the hole, and it was holding 2 feet of water in the basin just because it was on top of so someone's got to be maintaining these to make sure that water is flowing and there's a way for it to operate properly. You can go, John. So anytime you would see, standing water, signs of like wetlands vegetation growing, that would be an indication that a basin's not functioning properly. A lot of the new things now, like I said, they're pushing rain gardens. We're not going to see, we would not see this in Howell. I would be very shocked. So up in Newark, Hoboken, they're putting green roofs on the top of structures. That's very costly, so most developers are not doing that. If you're doing a 30-story high-rise, you can afford to put a green roof on top of the structure. Most of our areas down here, we have enough land where they can accommodate that. Yeah, and that's the thing too, so like, some towns have like requirements that the roof has to be white instead of black, so the water that's leaving the roof isn't, 150 degrees in the middle of the summer, which can like impact the water quality. And this is just kind of showing you like, telltale signs that a basin's not operating properly. Most of these stormwater basins, you have a storm event, 72 hours later, the basin should be dry. There shouldn't be any water. So if you see standing water, you see wetlands vegetation, there's definitely a sign that either it's not being maintained or, hopefully not. But I've seen some older stormwater basins where the design is just not not right. But I'd like to think we do a pretty good job in Howell Township. You got another slide, Jen? That's it? All right, so that's it. That's like really the high level. It's really on, no matter what board you are in the state of New Jersey, it's on your professionals to do the due diligence with the reviews. It's all stormwater modeling. So if you put garbage inputs, you get garbage outputs, right? So that's where I come in. We look at all the details. When you see there's 10 comments in a stormwater, it's if you look at each one of those individually, they probably don't move the needle, significantly. But when you have 20 of those and they all add up, it makes an impact. And I know for Howell Township, we have had some developments. I know Rich, you live over in the Pineview Estates where there was a development that was. Yeah, it was approved under Howell Township and later absorbed into Howell Township. That basin overflowed into some conveyance system in Howell Township, flooded some properties. So, it's all kind of out of sight, out of mind until someone gets impacted downstream. So, when it seems like we're giving someone a hard time, it's because like at some point someone could get hurt downstream of it, and we're just trying to prevent that. So. That's kind of really it in a nutshell. I don't know if there's any questions, comments.
The porous pavement, so my understanding with the porous pavement is that it requires ongoing maintenance too, because small debris particles, sand, dirt can clog that pavement and render it useless. basically.
Yes.
So, are there guidelines for that?
Yeah, so there's supposed to be, every site, once you get an approved stormwater management plan, you have to have an operation maintenance manual. They're required to record it as a deed restriction on the property, so that way, if they're not maintaining it, the town can put a lien on the property owner, and then actually do the work, and then, recoup their costs for doing that. I'm not a big fan of the porous pavement. The DEP folks think it's the greatest thing in the world, but, all that sediment, at some point, it's gonna get through your asphalt, and then it's gonna get to your stone underneath it, and it's a lot easy to tell if you have an above-ground hole in the pit to tell whether there's sediment and debris piling up, but when it's underground, it's out of sight, out of mind. So if we do see it, I like to see it for smaller storm events and only in parking areas, because I'm also not convinced that, that's gonna hold up to a tractor trailer coming in and out of a warehouse site, every day for 50 years, so. You do have to put a deed restriction on it too, so like a property owner can't factor in a porous pavement for the stormwater design and then 5 years from now go mill it out and put in solid pavement. So there's some caveats with it, but sometimes there's the policymakers on the castle up on the hill, and sometimes they don't see the real world impact of some of the things. So that's where we try to come in on that aspect.
Right. So we don't want to really, when you see vegetation like you have there, you don't want to see that.
Correct, and if you live next to a commercial property, or if you live near a residential property and you're seeing that, you can certainly contact the Township Engineering Department, and for the most part, anything that's been approved in the last, 5 to 10 years, there will be an approved O&M manual that's recorded by deed, so the town could go after it. There used to be a time back in the 80s and 90s where a 30-lot residential subdivision, the guy getting the last home on the subdivision, he got his property a little cheaper because he had a stormwater basin on the property. But then what ended up happening is he was responsible for mowing the grass, he was responsible for taking out the debris. It put a real burden on the one property owner, which the basin basically served the benefit of the entire development. You can't do that anymore. It's got to either be in an easement that's to an HOA or to the township. Our preference is that it's to the HOA or private entity, because the township has many basins that are very difficult to maintain, so we're trying not to take on any more than we already have.
Anybody else? You kept it under 20 minutes. Great.
I talk very quickly sometimes when I'm enthused about it. Yeah, John, can you forward this to Lisa so she can send it to all the board members? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Guess we have to motion to adjourn?
Yep.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second by Jose. All in favor? Aye. Good night.